Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a legend amongst legends in the world of character acting. And I am talking about the legendary Brandon Maggart. You all know him as the Killer Santa in the 1980 cult classic slasher holiday film Christmas Evil. He was also in such classics as Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill, The World According to Garp, the groundbreaking Showtime series Brothers, and many other things. And he was Buddy on the first season of Sesame Street. And I'm going to find out about all that stuff today. He's also the father of singer Fiona Apple, who I'm a big fan of. Love her singing voice. And he writes now. He's retired from acting. He writes now. I'm going to find out about what he writes and all that stuff. And I can't wait. It's going to be pretty awesome. Again, every day, counting my blessings of how lucky I am with the people I get to interview. Christmas December is going very well on Splat from the Past. So yeah, here is my interview with Brandon Maggart.
Hello.
Hey, Brandon, it's Tommy.
Hey.
Is this a good time?
Yeah, shoot. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's such an honor. Thank you for taking the time this morning.
Oh, fine. Glad to do it.
Yes. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. Just started watching the impeachment things here, but it's going to be the same thing all day, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm here ready for you. Shoot.
Okay. So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on?
You really want the whole story about starting in being in acting? Is that it?
Sure.
Okay. Let me put it this way. When I was a young boy, as many of us are, I was only interested in football and girls.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my teachers, actually she was a math teacher, but she also not ran the department. There wasn't a department. We would do a play or two a year kind of thing. And Mrs. Oldham, and she asked me to do a one-act play. And I never even thought about being an actor. And I thought, well, being in a play, I don't know. And so I read the play, and I said, well, it was interesting. And it was a one-act play called The Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
About I don't know if you know the play. It's about a man that's in prison. He's been accused of killing somebody. He's about to be executed, and his sister comes to. She's lost track of him, and she comes to find out if he's really her brother. And during their conversation, he listens to her, but he doesn't own up to the fact that he is her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And she leaves, and then he quotes something that she's quoted. She knew her brother quoted, "The valiant only die once." I mean, the cowards die only once. The valiant die only. I'm fucking it up. Excuse me, said it.
Yeah.
The valiant die only one time. Cowards die many times, but the valiant only die once. So anyway, it's a big tearjerker with that line at the end because the audience realizes that he is really her brother and he's about to be executed.
Right.
Anyway, so I did that, and one of the teachers came up to me after a performance, and she was a literature, English teacher. And I could never get through to her, and could she get through to me? And she was, she came backstage, and she came up to me, and she was a rather big, portly woman, and she always wore like heavy makeup. But when she came up to me, I could see that the tears had run down her cheek through the makeup, made like trenches down under each eye, and she expressed about how she'd been moved and so forth. So right then I said to myself, well, there might be something to this.
Mm-hmm.
Might have some sort of way to move people. And that if I'm good at it, I might pursue it, and then it's kind of stemmed from there with some encouragement. Anyway, a big Hollywood actor saw me do a run through as well, told me I should come to New York. So that's how it kind of got started.
Nice. So you were in New York for how long?
I was in New York for 25 years.
Mm-hmm. And you were originally from Tennessee.
Originally from a small town, Carthage, Tennessee. But I was in New York for 25 years. Suffered for quite a bit before getting really good. Started really well, and then I did a lot of plays and musicals, and began doing TV series, and finally moving to California and later on.
Mm-hmm. Did you study with anybody famous out in New York?
You know, I only took one acting class, and the teacher told me, said, "Look, here's what you do. You walk over to the mantle, and you pick up a glass that's on the mantle, and you take a sip, and you come back and you bring it back with you, and you sit down." And I thought, well, I can do that without a class, so I didn't go back anymore. I just watched by learning. I always watch it. I made it a habit. I noticed it in plays, rehearsals, that people, if they weren't on stage, they would be off somewhere doing a crossword puzzle or whatever. But I watched everything. If I went to the theater, and no matter how bad the play or how good it was, I watched everything, see what worked.
Mm-hmm.
What made something effective one time, and if you see it the next night or a different night, and it doesn't work that night, to see why didn't it work? Why does some actors speak too loudly, which I'd been accused of at the time back then when we didn't have microphones. We thought we were supposed to reach the third balcony, and which I could do because I was a singer. I was actually won an operatic scholarship from the University from Tennessee. To come to New York to study, I was going to be an opera singer, and then I wanted to be a Broadway performer. Anyway, started like that.
Nice. And one of your earliest roles was an episode of Car 54, Where Are You?
Well, that was one of them. My very first episode on television, I believe, was either Naked City or
Route 66?
Route 66, yeah. But I did Route 66, and I did 3 of the Naked City. Back then, Naked City was really a wonderful show because all the New York actors were available, and they were the writers, and it's really great writers. And I don't know if there's a wonderful name, Cessa, my favorite right now. With my old brain, I'm 86 now. But Cessa, I think is his last name. But he has an anthology of all those old shows about Naked City. So if you want to look that up, you can watch those old shows. It's quite wonderful.
Yeah, I think I saw one years ago because it was a clip with Leslie Nielsen on it or something.
Right. Well, you can. All those are available. If you look up, I'm sure you look up Naked City and Google it, and you'll find all those wonderful shows with really great actors and writers. It was wonderful back then. So yeah, that was one of those 2 is the first, but I only did one of the Route 66, but I did 3 of the Naked City.
Mm-hmm. But on that Car 54 episode, you got to work with some great actors in that episode: Dana Elcar, Ozzie Davis, Tom Bosley.
Well, I don't even remember working with them. You know, as you probably know, you're an actor as well?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was a little bit in the beginning myself. So, yeah, if you do it like an episode, if I do a scene or 2, you might work with only 1 or 2 people. And when you later on when you watch the show, I said, oh, I did one of the Naked Cities I did with Hume Cronin. And later on, I spoke it. Well, he'd won it'd been 50 years in television. I was one of the speakers out here at a celebration. And I said, along the same line, I said, I never did this whole running thing with him. That was the whole show. But I never met him and when shooting it. And then I did The World According to Garp, and he was in that.
Right.
I did another thing according to him. I said, I worked with this wonderful actor over the years for three times and never met him. Of course, that's the way it is with, when you do a movie or whatever, you might not meet it, but the people that you're in the scene with.
Right. And then in 1969, you got to be a regular on the first season of Sesame Street.
Yes, I did. That was wonderful.
How did that happen for you?
Well, there was a club back in New York called the Upstairs, the Downstairs, and I was in a show there with my friend Jimmy Cattusi and other people there. It was on 37 West 56th Street, and during the time in its heyday, it was like the grand time of cabaret in New York, sketches and so forth. And it was like the only show in town like that. And then after that, spewing from that was they started doing on television with the famous show, which I can't think of right now, of course. It's up to me in a minute. But and then I got caught off the track there trying to think of that thing. What was I saying?
About how you got on Sesame Street.
Oh yeah, but doing the show there with Jimmy and one of the guys, one of the producers of Sesame Street. There was no Sesame Street then. It was just public television, and he said, asked me if I would do a series of sketches for this new television show, maybe. And I said, certainly. He said, who would you like to work with? And I said, well, Jimmy Cattusi is wonderful. We worked together quite often, and we were doing sketches there at the time. He said, well, come on over. And we went to the studio. We read these. They were like 6 sketches, brief sketches, and so we took a look at them and did our own spin on them, and filmed them like in 2 days. I think it's something like 2 days. We filmed a bunch of it, and then we forgot about it because it was just. We didn't know anything about it. He didn't either at the time. He was just hopeful about it, as I found out later. And then later on, several months later, I got a call from public television that said that we were invited to a screening of the new children's television show, Sesame Street. And so Jim and I, I said, well, what was that? Oh, you remember those sketches we did? That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So we went over and walked into the Plaza Hotel, and it was packed with the press like you wouldn't believe, because it was their rollout of this hopefully wonderful new children's television show, which is going to make a big splash. And so we sat down with all these people. I think we were both hungover at the time, and we watched along. It looked really, really nice and well done, and colorful, and then all of a sudden, one of our sketches came on, and that crowd started roaring, laughing at us. And I looked at Jimmy and said, Jimmy, what the hell is this? Anyway, it stemmed from there. And so, and they asked us to come back and do more of those sketches. And we were just on the first year.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, they thought the show was going to be so big that everybody was going to be asked to endorse products and so forth, and they wanted to have the rights to approve any commercial or film you did. And I said, wait a minute. And they weren't paying anything practically, just a little bit. They were in the beginning. They weren't even paying scale because everybody was so happy to do it. Right? Well, I was happy to do it, but I had a big family, and I had to live. They had to eat, and so.
Mm-hmm.
And so. I was also, when I was doing, I did a Broadway show, a big Broadway show at Applause at the time. I was just going into that, and so I said I can't sign up for this, but it was heartbreaking. And my friend Jimmy, his heart was broken because he loved it, and we went to hospitals and private homes and everything, entertained the little children, and it was. Quite wonderful. We went to one of the children's hospitals in New York, and the juxtaposition of walking into the hospital and right across the street where just filled with little kids playing. And we went up to whatever the floor it was, and there was just a floor of young kids all had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But we walked in, and they just loved us. They knew all the sketches and everything. And then as we were leaving, we walked back, and those kids across the street playing in the park, and they had no idea what was just right beside them, up a few flights of kids in real bad trouble. It was really unusual. So anyway, we were both disappointed we couldn't continue, but they were a stickler at the time. I don't know how they got the other people to agree to it, but we were, at the time, we were the most popular real people, live people on the show, as I was told.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's that story.
Wow. We just lost Carol Spiney, who played Big Bird. Did you know him?
Carol Spinney,
yeah.
I worked with Big Bird. I did one sketch with Big Bird. I didn't know Miss Spinney very well. In fact, I don't know if I knew him at all. I knew him through another producer on another show kind of thing. But, no, he was he's an iconic person in children's television. Quite a wonderful character he played. He played other characters too, as I recall. But Big Bird was the one that made the thing work.
Yeah, I can't believe that show is still on 50 years later. It's amazing.
I know it was the 50 years anniversary. But they ever since that they've been reluctant to even play. And you can see our sketches. Quite a few of our sketches on YouTube. If you just you can YouTube my name, and you'll see a lot of those sketches there. But because I wouldn't renew the contract, they were kind of pissed, and so was I. But I still had to feed a family.
Mm-hmm. That's very admirable to do that. So how does Christmas Evil come into your life?
Christmas Evil, I guess. Well, I was, doing like a New York actor. If you do a show, if you finally get a show once a year and it opens and closes, or even doesn't open and close it, you're out of work. So I was working as a waiter most of that time. And I started out working as a waiter at that club I talked about, at the upstairs, at the downstairs.
Right.
There was a producer who had seen me in a summer stock show and asked me to come in and cover the people there. But I got off the track again. Go ahead. What?
About how you got Christmas Evil.
Yeah. So anyway, I was always looking for a job, and my agent said, they wanted to see me about a film, a low-budget film, and so I went in, and I found out that they'd been auditioning for a long time to get the right actor, and they'd come up with a friend of mine, George Lunda, but I think he turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that at the time, and so they wanted me to do it, and I agreed to do it, and so that's how it came about.
Were you excited, though, that you were at least going to play the lead in a film?
Well, I was very excited after reading the script and talking to the director, Louis Jackson. He'd worked on that film, writing it, and trying to get it produced for 10 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know in the very beginning. He's a very bright man, and he was a film critic for some film for some papers or magazines or something. I don't know. But he was dedicated himself to this, and he'd gone into the research of St. Nick and how it was evolved over the years through Germany and so forth, about Santa and St. Nick and what Dirty Pete or whatever it is, and how they, if a kid was bad, that Santa would leave him a bucket of coal, and there was a whole ritual about, I don't know if you've seen the film, but
yep.
that Santa would put his hands in mud and mark the house where Pete lived, or mark the house where a bad kid would live. It was rather spooky and kind of scary and weird and strange. But this little kid, I assume you've seen the film.
Yep.
Beginning of the film, it's a little kid, and he's a brother, and actually I think it's an older brother. But the little kid, they watched. They were on the stair step and watched Santa Claus come down, and the mother had made cookies for Santa, and they were standing, sneaking and watching. And Santa does this too familiar scene with Mom.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it went on too long. If they'd only just put a glimpse of it in there.
Yeah.
I think he just ran out of money before he could get it cut properly. I don't know. But anyway, then the kid, of course, then ran back upstairs, and he was so disillusioned that he didn't know what to do, so he grabbed that snowball and broke it, and then it broke it, cut his hand, and you cut to the red blood running down his hand. So you knew that red was going to be in the film quite a bit, as it was, and it turned out to be red blood. Later on, when he became more disillusioned with the world around him, didn't understand Santa was supposed to reward the good kids and punish the bad ones. Of course, in punishing the bad ones, they were an extreme punishment, like he ended up doing to the grown-ups that he thought were not following what was right and what was wrong, and that's when he kind of flipped out. Not kind of flipped out. He went over the edge there.
And then flies off into the North Pole.
Well, the whole thing, the film was, as I say, Louis Jackson was, influenced greatly by some of the European films, and the cinematographer, Aronovich, I think Aronovich got most of the budget because he wanted his film, his cinematography. And so in the kids, or my character's mind, when everything is falling apart, people were chasing him with torches. Now, in my mind, that didn't really happen, but in his mind, it happened. Mm-hmm. And realistically, during that time, neighborhoods didn't have people with torches, right? Yeah. So he read everything. You can see it in his workshop. He's meticulous. He was an artist, making things properly. Made his own lead soldiers. He bought and made the lead soldiers there, and painted his band to look like a replica of the Santa sleigh. So he was really good in certain areas, and that, but he was certainly a troubled young man. Troubled little boy and a very troubled young man who was brought over to the edge. And so when the people were chasing him and he ran down there, and he got in the van and he's going off, and the van bursts through the fence and goes off into the air, through the sky, and saying Merry Christmas to all and good night. Well, of course, that didn't happen. But in my mind, that when he went through that gate, he was free. He was free from the bounds of the earth, from gravity. And in his mind, he was into a bliss of doing the right thing. He was in his sleigh, going out through the night sky across the moon, and he was off to do the right things of bringing gifts to good young children. Now, that's the subtext in my mind when I did those things.
Yeah, to me, the torches is kind of a homage to Frankenstein.
Yeah.
How was Diane Hull like to work with?
I don't remember. We just had a brief scene. I don't think we actually had it. I don't remember if we had a line together or not. I didn't really get to know her. Jeffrey DeMana, I'd seen. Actually, I approved him being cast because the director had me come and see him in a play about some artist, I forget. And I thought he was wonderful. And he said he was thinking about casting him. I said, yeah, he's really great, wonderful actor. And he's still doing great work, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had Britannia Alda on 4 times, including on Monday, and she told me the only two things she remembers from the movie is she hit her head on one of the takes when she was being pushed down in the alley, and the fact that she didn't get paid was the other thing she didn't remember.
She didn't get paid. I can't imagine what she had to pay. Anyway, yes, she was in the scene. We were out in the alley, and Santa's got he's running at the time, and he runs in the little kids there, and he stops, and of course he's facing the innocence of the little kids, and then the parents come running around the corner, and they'd heard Bad Santa was out, and they're so frightened that this crazy guy's going to kill the kids, but the little kids invest in Santa. They don't know anything about him being killed, and so somehow there's one of the guys drops a knife, and there's a standoff. But one of the little girl, of course, said, "Here, Santa." She brings it back to Santa. So yes, that was. I remember that scene, and she was one of the parents there soon, and I do recall, I remembered her hearing about that she did get knocked out. I didn't know she didn't get paid. Which nobody got paid much.
Yeah.
I worked 6 days a week except for a couple of days, and for 6 weeks doing this thing. The 2 days off I had while doing it, I did another movie called Dress to Kill.
For Brian De Palma.
But so didn't make much money at all on that film. But the odd thing about it, of all the stage plays I've done, and all the movies and television series and everything, the one thing that's going to be around for God no millennia is going to be this one low budget film I did, because it's some of the people say a lot of the people say it's the best Santa Claus film they'd ever seen, best Christmas film they'd ever seen. Now, personally, I don't see that, but in my mind I did when I was reading it and when I was doing it. But final production it showed itself as being low budget. But nevertheless, there's an amazing number of fans, and they did shown every year. So it'll be around for God knows how long, because there's film, and film is coming. Now, I think on Showtime, and I saw it, and it's a wonderful quality of film there. It is not like one of these old aged films or whether it deteriorates, but it looks, I would assume, just like it did when they first put it out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be around. Of all the things I did, that one thing is going to be around.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great legacy to have. But did the producers make any script changes during production?
I don't think so. Not that I recall. Certainly, I was prone to, he had to watch me or I would rewrite things. But I didn't on that, because I did precisely what he wanted to do. There was a scene where Santa's trying to come down a chimney, and he can't get down. Of course, and he's stuck in the chimney, and he's beating on the chimney. And I said, "Why is he beating on the chimney?" He said, "Well, it's abstract." And so I didn't know what he meant at the time. It was abstract. It was in his mind that he couldn't continue. There was always something in his way to stop him from doing the right thing. And he'd roll down and fall down here, get up there. It was always something from keep holding him back from being a good Santa Claus. But so that was a frustration. So again, that's kind of a European kind of thing. But no, I didn't. I don't think I changed a single word, as far as I recall. Because if he was so dedicated, and for 10 years on that, I wasn't going to mess with what he wanted to do. And I still hear from him from time to time. I don't know what he's up to right now, but I think we did meet him because sometimes they have people want us to show up at filmings out here, because I live in California, and every once in a while I'll go to the screening and show up and have people ask me questions and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway.
Working with Brian De Palma on Dress to Kill was a good experience?
Well, yeah, those 2 days out. But, honest to God, I was so hungover. Now, I didn't drink when I was working.
Mm-hmm.
But I would drink. When I was doing Christmas Eve, I had a driver pick me up. I lived on a Riverside Drive in Manhattan. They drove me way out in New Jersey somewhere. Not way up, but over in New Jersey. So I had a driver pick me up, and I'd go to work and put on that damn beard and spirit gum. I hated that. And then out in the cold. But so I'd say, out in that alley with Ritanya was there. It was below zero during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Those poor little kids and me. And when then everybody would break for lunch, but I had to stay outside, and they had to feed me through a straw. Somehow through a straw, because if I went back in or got warmed up in that thing, my whole scoot, I would melt. My beard would melt. I would melt. It was just awful. So it was. I earned what few bucks I made on that film.
That's great. And you were on the first sitcom Showtime ever produced, Brothers.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience. I don't know if did you ever see any of those?
I saw it when I first got YouTube. Yes.
Well, when it first came out, that was back during the plague of the what they call the gay cancer thing, AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a horrible time, we did it in front of a live studio audience, and it was like the first time that they could show up and watch a show that saw something human about somebody that they could identify with, and that were not terrible people, not very strange, that were just other human beings who were going through a terrible thing. And that was the greatest audience I ever played to. I did burlesque. Some of those audiences were great too. But these were just great. And they were wonderful people. I'd come out between scenes and ask to talk to me between the scenes. And it was really fun. It was such a tar. As a matter of fact, right after we did, I think, 5 or 6 years on that show. I mean, I think it was 116 episodes we did. Come in, I need to cough right now. Hold on. Clear my throat. Sorry, apologize for that.
Okay.
But anyway, somebody had written Takeoff on Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted me to play Tevye in that. And so I did. It was just an incredibly wonderful, beautiful script, and the audiences were so appreciative. It was a human thing is happening to them. It was, for many of them, quite a few of them, it was probably the last laugh one of the last laughs and tears they ever had in the theater. And so that was fulfilling for me at the time to be able to do that, but it was really such a horrible time in their lives. Matter of fact, one of my people I just been in touch with was a man called David Sanford, and he won the Pulitzer Prize. He was one of the editors of Wall Street Journal at the time, and he developed AIDS himself. And he wrote an article that won the Pulitzer Prize for him about his dealing with it at the time, and how he was involved in dealing with the medicines that were being developed at the time, and how he finally came out of it. It's like he thought he was for sure dying, and then he finally realized that he's still living, and he said, probably the only way he's going to get killed is probably if he gets hit by a bus. But he's been in touch with me and friends. Now, as far as I'm the straightest white guy you ever met in your life. most of my friends, of course, my trouble has been with women. But most of my friends, I'd say half my friends have been gay. I had two best friends. One best friend was Ronnie Graham.
Oh, yeah.
He was a little bit like me. You'd fall in love with the drop of a song, as I said in one of my books. But he couldn't keep away from the women, neither Neither could I. But Marshall Barrett was the other, and they were both geniuses in their field, I think. But they were both equally loved by me and my family. They spent a lot of time here in my house with a lot of my children and grandchildren and dogs and cats and stuff. And they were great friends. So I grew up and worked with around people that I did one of the first, back, it was a little bit like when the black audience first got to see shows that were about them at the public theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I did they were great audiences. And I did a play called Wedding Band with Ruby Dee and Jimmy Broderick. And about a young Jimmy Broderick played a white man, and he's in love with Ruby Dee.
Mm-hmm.
And those audiences it was about them. They didn't watch somebody playing a bellhop or a step and fetch it kind of thing. Realistic about human beings and a situation, and that also. So I was lucky to be able to come up with dealing with children, dealing with different races and sexual differences of people, to find out that firsthand that people are people, and they've been wired a little differently, or quite a bit differently, but essentially we're all the same.
I agree.
A lot of people like I grew up with whatever. I'd never experienced a homosexual that I knew about, really, until I got into musical comedy on Broadway, and that musical comedy on Broadway. That's one of the reasons I got too involved with women. There were so many women. So anyway, so I've been very lucky in that way, because I have an overview. I think that people should have. That people are people. I know some terrible gay men and women. I know some, but mostly wonderful. They're just like, I know terrible straight men and women. But so they're just people. And so I've been fortunate to witness that firsthand, whereas some of the people in what you call the flyover states or somehow, the people that are different are in the shadows and living undercover lives that are strange. But it's evolving, and thank goodness. I wish the Christian church would catch up with that. I can't imagine Jesus looking down at our southern border and saying, "Oh, this is okay." They're taking the children away from their mothers and put them in prisons there. So, as a matter of fact, I've been in touch with my hometown paper about that. But they did publish a couple of things, but people are not small-minded. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance. If you grow up a certain way, or you think a certain way, you marry yourself to those thoughts. When your people say, "Oh, well, I was raised by," raised by certain things, are being raised by discipline and loving thy neighbor and all that, which I learned from being in a Christian church. I grew up in a Methodist church. Mm-hmm. But now to look up and see it being hijacked by political forces, it's just disheartening. And I was sort of hoping that the churches would take a bigger stand against this, but I'm hoping that they will eventually, but we'll see.
I hope so too. Yeah, I'm born and raised in San Francisco. I have lots of gay friends, and I don't like to see the way that they're represented by a lot of people. It's very disarming. But yeah, I remember your friend Ronnie Graham. He was in the Mel Brooks movies.
Oh yes, oh my God, yeah. He was so fun. But he was here quite often. He had children too, several children.
Yeah.
He had a couple, but Timothy Jane, his daughter is a wonderful photojournalist. And right now she's working on a project with the American Indians and the wolves, and then his son Ronnie Jr. was here. They were here quite often, but most of the time he had other children back east. But he was here around my children a lot. My children just loved him. They loved Marshall too, although Marshall was maddening.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever read anything. He's a wonderful lyricist. He wrote the lyrics of Once Upon a Mattress.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea Markovici and Michael Feinstein, both wonderful cabaret artists, iconic, I don't know right. They once wrote that Marshall Barrow was our greatest living lyricist. And when Marshall died, I was quoted in the New York Times obituary saying Marshall Barrow was the world's worst house guest. Marshall would stay here, and he would cause all sorts of chaos. But anyway, so all the different. I've been really lucky and know some really brilliant people, loving people, and artistic people, and people with open minds, and not closed off by any kind of small town bounds.
Yeah, speaking of brilliant people, you were on a Showtime comedy special that Louise Duart had called The Secret of Barry's Wife, and Louise has been on the podcast. Very funny, very delightful lady. Do you have any good stories about her?
I hate to say this, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was in 1991, and you play a character named Grub.
I apologize. I have no recollection. I'm out of 1991. No, I was sober then, so
yeah.
I've been sober for 40 years.
Oh, good.
Clean and sober for 40 years now. If you want me to talk about sobriety, I'll be happy to do that because sobriety has saved my life. And I've had a wonderful life since that time. I was kind of a bad boy during my drinking eras and stuff. But
me too.
So I certainly, and when it runs in my family, my mother's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of my father's side, all clean, stoic, Germanic kind of wouldn't touch a drop. At least the ones I know. Once I knew it when I was growing up. But my mom's side of the family, they're wonderful, colorful, loving people. But they had my favorite was my Uncle Oscar, my mother's brother. And I've seen him. Excuse me a minute. Sorry, I had to clear my throat again.
Okay.
And my dad were partners. They owned a farm together in Smith County called over in the Horseshoe Bend. And they showed my dad was teetotaler, and my Uncle Oscar. He loved the grape too much. But I've seen him, back then, moonshine. Did you ever drink moonshine?
I had it at least once. I know I did.
Yeah. Well, I loved moonshine. I thought it was great. Matter of fact, my friend was a local sheriff, and he used to capture the bootleggers coming through, but he had some in the basement, so his son and I and others would partake of the captured moonshine in the basement. And lots of stories about me and moonshine, and terribly wonderful, funny stories about that. Tragic. Looking back on it, they're funny, but at the time, oops, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Next month I'll be sober 5 years. I had a car accident in 2015, and I was in a coma for 30 days.
Well, and how did you get sober?
The doctor told me, one more drink and you'll die. My liver was pretty shot because I had had a drink every day for about 4 years up to that point.
Well, you're clean and sober still?
Clean and sober still.
Well, congratulations, and you saved your life, pal.
Thank you, yeah.
That's one thing that I've seen people in my family, some of them have gone through that and have come out clean and sober. And some of them a few are still struggling. And I'm sure you can identify with this. If you're telling somebody who's going through it, look, your life will change. And they say, and I can remember saying, I can't imagine life without drinking. I can't imagine it. But you know what? Because your life is around the drink. You can go out and make a living, you do your thing, you live your life or whatever. But it's basically bound around that the reward you get. It's that reward you get. When you first started drinking, you had a drink first time, you really liked it. You want to keep getting that high.
Mm-hmm.
But it keeps going down. You take more whiskey like people on drugs now. Well, they get on high. Oh, that's wonderful. Then they keep chasing that high. But you can't get it again. You start getting more drugs and more drugs and more whiskey until you kill yourself. It's that thing. So a lot of people, one of the books I'm writing now is about first love. I don't know. Most everybody had did you have a first love?
You mean like a romantic first love?
Yeah. Most everybody has a first love that they remember their whole life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's there. And many times, consciously or subconsciously, you keep chasing the high of that first love.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you find it, and then sometimes it's terrible. I used to find it for a period of 2 years. I'm going to have a first love, and I'd be in love for 2 years, and they'd finally see through me. They'd heard all my stories, and they'd see me drinking too much. So then I'd fall in love with somebody else who thought I was the greatest thing that ever lived for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd wise up me over and over like that. So anyway, my life has turned completely 180 degrees, and I'm not a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up religious, then I saw what people were in the church were doing and not doing, and I couldn't believe some of the things. But I did take from it that what this are the teachings of Jesus, which what I don't understand what the church is, as I said before, is not continuing that. They say we're Christian or their own religion. Most religions stem from the same thing. They just got hijacked along the way, like with the King of England, which had hijacked this, and other people had hijacked the other Abraham branch or whatever, like that. So the essentials are there, what Jesus taught.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
when you quit drinking, how many years did you do it for?
Well, first I quit once for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I quit several times I quit once a day for a while. But then I finally, like you, my doctor said, I could get the shakes. I couldn't remember lines, and I said, well, this is not good because, as I say, I wouldn't drink on the job, but after the job I would drink. So I never went on stage drinking or drunk like that. But my doctor said, I said, doctor, I think I drink too much. And he said, well, maybe you should look into it. And I had friends who were in Alcoholics Anonymous and told me about that. And matter of fact, I tell you, do you have time for me to tell you the first time when the straw that broke the camel's back?
Oh, of course. Go right ahead.
Okay, I had my two youngest daughters were with me walking down the street in New York, Broadway and 111th Street. And they were like, one was 5, one was 6, I think, or 4 and 5, I forget. And one in each hand. We're walking down the street. Mm-hmm. And around the corner comes a taxi, screeching, and turns in 111th Street as we were walking across the intersection. And people screamed and yelled, and I, of course, picked up my kids and one in each hand and made it to the curb as he come around the corner. And I yelled something at him, and people were yelling, and so, but I called him a name. I thought I called him a son of a bitch, but my daughter years later told me, said, Dad, no, you called him something like Jack. So I must have called him a jackass. I can't remember ever calling anybody a jackass, but I might have, since I was with the kids, I might have called him a jackass.
Yeah.
But anyway, the cab driver just stopped, screeched to a halt. If somebody going that fast was either getting away from something or going to something really fast. For him to stop and get out of his cab coming back to me was unusual, to say the least. Mm-hmm. Especially if you've been called jackass. So there were people on the side around all watching this, and a couple of the women standing on the hood. And one kid asked him to hold the girls. He said no. You could tell right away he was not emotionally able to deal with this. But a couple of the older women, they held my two daughters, and this guy came towards me, and we went at it right in the middle of the street, throwing fists and grabbing up. It didn't last that long, but he was a big guy. He was big, and he had rings, he had a big afro. He had rings on his finger, rings on his finger, and he clocked me right above my forehead, and caused me to bleed. And but anyway, we rode to the pavement, and he got up and jumped back in his cab and took off. Now here's the thing: so I'm laying down on my back, and I'm looking up, and there's like a crowd of people, like in a circle, looking. Faces all right, looking down at me, flat on my back, looking up. And right in the middle of it was it's kind of like a Fellini thing. Mm-hmm. There's this old African American gentleman with white, short white hair and white beard, and he looked down at me. He said, "You shouldn't do that in front of the children." I said, "Holy crap!" It was like, reverberated in my mind, and he disappeared. Nobody else disappeared. And anyway, moved in, got me patched up in a drugstore, and I had to walk my kids over to a hospital, nearby hospital, to get a few stitches. But I wasn't drinking at the time, but I was hungover. That's why I didn't do very well in the fight. But I never had another drink after that, and I went to AA, and I've been clean and sober ever since.
That's wonderful, Brandon. That's a very great accomplishment. So you've been retired from acting for a while, but you're writing mostly now.
Yeah, I was acting and doing quite a bit of work. Then I got to the age, I noticed some older people who couldn't remember the lines. I said, oh, God, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I noticed it was harder to memorize lines. And finally, I had a really bad back problem, which I did have, finally had surgery when I was 80. But for like 10 or 15 years, I had a terrible problem with walking around, lying down, sitting, and finally, the doctor didn't even want to do the surgery because of my age. But I said, look, I don't care if I don't wake up from the table. I can't live a life like that, constant pain. I couldn't stand, walk, sit, or anything. So fortunately, the surgery came out fine, so fine. So during all that time, when I first started not being able to, my memory started going bad on me, and I couldn't walk around. So I said, well, this is it. I've got to ring down the curtain on this part of my life. So then I started painting and started writing more. I'd always written all my life, but started writing more now. I've written several books. I've written 6 now. I told my son, says, Dad, you have written 6 books. You've written 1 book 6 times. Well, because writers write about what they know. So I've written about right now I've got an audio book and a print version of an audio book that should be out in a few months called Where Possums Dance and the Wild Sings. And it's going back to all my life in the country and about living in that area of folklore and tall tales told and all up into my life, of course, in the theater and everything like that. But so that's what it's about now. I've written those books, but people said, people always like to hear me talk. For some reason, they like my voice. Mm-hmm. And they said, Brandon, I said, well, you should do an audio version. Audio books are really popular now. People commute to listen and whatever. I said, well, that's a good idea. So I started recording it. And matter of fact, I just this morning recorded a little extra I wanted to put on the very end of the book. So I've gotten the copyright and got my cover all set, and so it's ready to go. So then it's going to be out in 2 or 3 months.
2 or 3 months. Good. I'll keep an eye out for that. Is there anything else you've been working on that you'd like to mention?
I've been working on these series of books, and that's it. Painting. I don't know if you know about my paintings.
Oh no.
My house is. I live in a three-story house. It's a smaller house, but on one side of the house, it's 3 flights up. And I painted. I've covered with all the paintings I've done all around the house and in the garage and stacked up. Now, when I started on that, doing that, my daughter one of my daughters was killed in an auto crash. Mm-hmm. And while I was doing Brothers. Oh. And I was just destroyed. Mm-hmm. I'm not fully over, I don't think anybody ever gets over that fully, but I was just totally destroyed. She was back east. I'm out here, and she planned to come out west, and then she got killed in a single car auto crash. So I was just destroyed. So I started. I remember my mother telling me a joke one time, and I remembered it. And I was we were in table readings for the show, and when you're taking notes, you scribble. So I started scribbling out something, and that finally evolved into jokes and laughter. I was doing a show about comedy at the time, and laughter that helped me out of it. So I started thinking of those old jokes. I started, how can I tell an old joke, remind people of a story, of a famous old iconic story, if on one painting. Put the essentials of what the story is on one painting. So if somebody knew the story many years before, if they looked at the painting, and they could say, I know that story. I remember somebody told me that when I was 12 or 15 or 20, something like that. So I got into that thing of doing it, and I did it. And actually, my people who live in Venice, which is an artistic community, and people at one time with their Venice Centennial, 200 Centennial, people came in and went around my house looking at the paintings, and I put punchlines on a big poster time. And they'd look at the punchlines, walk around the house, and see if they recognized the paintings, which was a nice experience, and raised money for the Venice Family Free Clinic. So that's what I did for all that. After I started painting, I painted everything I knew. So this one I went full-fledged into writing. A lot of songs and stories and my books, and now finishing up with this one.
Ah, that's great. You got stuff to keep you busy then while you're retired from acting and all that.
Well, that's kept being sober and having something to do. It's like going back when you try to tell somebody, your life will change and things will get better. No, they can't understand it. I couldn't understand it. Because, as I say, your life is filled with going from one drink to the next drink. You're going plodding through life, all the problems. But essentially, you're waiting for that, the next little high, and waiting for it to get more. So, as of now, and even now, I wake up in the morning so thrilled with thoughts of things I'm thinking about, observing things. The world is set. In my books, I talk a lot about math and physics and music and creative things, and it evolved that. In the book, I'm a big fan of Johann Sebastian Bach, and about his fugues especially, and about how I see my life has been like a fugue, and my life has been like an extensive cello line and a fugue with my family members interplaying when their individual roles, and how it interplays and comes to a final when the chord is finally resolved at the end. Much as any great stories, they're resolved at the end. So that's my life. I parallel my life with a Bach fugue, which is some people don't get that, but some people do, especially anyway.
Amazing. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you continue writing and painting. And I want you to know, I love your daughter Fiona Apple's singing voice.
Oh, thank you. You should hear my daughter Maud Maggart. I don't know if you're. She has really incredible voices. Most of her recordings are the American Songbook, so you should look her up. And they sing together. Maud is on some of Fiona's recordings with her.
Mm-hmm.
She sings duets with her, something like that. But they're quite wonderful together. All right.
I'll check them out. Yeah, I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Now listen, before you go, I want to say congratulations to you, and stick with it, pal.
I will.
Stick with it. Don't give up. I don't care what. I was sober for. Do you have another minute?
Go ahead.
I was sober for a year once,
mm-hmm.
and then I went to a birthday party, and I was in a restaurant. Now people around me were drinking margaritas, and I said they were sipping, and I said, "Well, I know I shouldn't drink, but my woman at the time had a margarita." And I reached over, took a sip of the margarita, and God, that was good. And I said, "Well, this is something I can do this." And so I had another one, and then another one, and I started drinking. I said, I can control my drinking. Well, within 6 weeks, I was just in worse shape than I was before. So that first taste, when you're sober and you go back and take one and say, yeah, I can control this, fight it off, fella.
Yeah.
Because it's like I equate it into jumping off the Empire State Building, and on the way down, you wish you'd made a better choice.
Yeah, I'm staying away from it. I'm not going anywhere near it. Thank you so much, Brandon.
All right, God bless you, pal.
You too, sir.
If you ever send me a copy of this if you can.
I sure will, sir. I sure will.
Right. Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Brandon Maggart. Ain't he a cool dude? Amazing man. Perseverance. Keeps going out there and slugging them out. What an amazing man. I'm honored to have interviewed him. And check out his daughter's music. She's got a great singing voice, Fiona Apple. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.